Agents historically were with Insurtech. We're kind of sitting on the sidelines, just seeing what technology was being provided to them. And with BrokerTech Ventures specifically, it was about how do we become more involved? We can help drive the technologies that need to be there for our organization.
Welcome to the Leaders Edge podcast. I'm Sandy Laycox, editor-in-chief of Leaders Edge. In this podcast, sponsored by BrokerTech Ventures, I talk with John Jackovin, executive director of the BrokerTech Ventures Accelerator. John and the rest of the BTV team are gearing up for a fall filled with conferences, starting with InsureTech Connect, which will be held in mid-October in Las Vegas. BTV hosts BrokerTech Connect, a micro-event of sorts within ITC. And John gives us some insight into the event, starting with a quick primer on ITC itself.
So ITC, or InsureTech Connect, is a once a year event that happens in Vegas. It's the largest Insurtech event, I believe, that exists. I'll use the world, but that seems overly large in scope. But it just may be. And so it brings together, historically, Insurtechs and venture capitalists and carriers and more recently brokers into the space where there's content. The way it works is day one, there's a lot of content, which is where BrokerTech Connect falls into. And then on days 2 and 3, think big expo hall, all the startups meet, and there's tons of booths and areas, specially designed depending on what type of startup and where you're servicing. So it's a really, really big, impactful event in the insurance and insurtech space.
So let's talk a little bit about BrokerTech Connect and why initially BTV got involved in this, and then sort of how it's evolved to what it is today.
Yeah. So, boy, this actually, I believe, is before my time in the insurtech space and with BrokerTech Ventures. But in 2019, they had this concept of Agency Connect, the folks at InsureTech Connect, of ways of getting agents and brokers involved. And that was, if you kind of align fall of 2019 with global pandemics, you'll know that it occurred, probably 4 months before everything changed in the world. And so they ran that 1 year, and then obviously things changed in 2020. And we actually worked with InsureTech Connect on Agency Connect, which was a virtual program at that point. And then in 21, when it came back, it was really we actually rebranded it to BrokerTech Connect to kind of go to coincide with BrokerTech Ventures, and from there the goal and the concept being of BrokerTech Connect has always been, how do we get agents more involved in the insurtech space? And I think the impetus for BrokerTech Connect and the impetus for BrokerTech Ventures were actually kind of similar in the capacity where agents historically were with Insurtech. We're kind of sitting on the sidelines, just seeing what technology was being provided to them. And with BrokerTech Ventures specifically, it was about how do we become more involved, right? How do we help craft the narrative and get involved in the industry so that we can help drive the technologies that need to be there for our organizations. And it's similar with BrokerTech Connect, where we're looking to help and inform so that brokers, even outside of the BrokerTech Ventures community, can learn about what's happening in the space so that they can continually advance their organization through the use and adoption of technology.
With technology developing at an increasingly accelerated pace, there's a lot to talk about at an InsureTech event. John shares a bit of the agenda for this year's BrokerTech Connect.
Oftentimes you'll go to conferences and you'll hear kind of the same narrative coming out, and we try to to tweak it to just, even if it's a similar topic, we change the perspective, change the angle so that we're hitting it from a different side. And so, some of the things, yeah, obviously AI is huge, right?
Yeah.
And people talk about AI all the time, and they talk about the kind of the ethics behind AI, right?
Mm. Oh, they are
And
talking about that. That's good.
oh yes, yeah, yeah. It's the one narrative out of AI that seems to be pretty pervasive, and how to determine whether or not something is inherently biased. And it's really difficult to do if it's just a system generated content. And so that's been kind of beaten a bit to death. And so what we're looking at is AI. Like, let's talk about all the crazy stuff that could happen, good and bad, when it comes to AI. So instead of just kind of focusing on this like right down the middle, let's look at the potentially amazing and potentially catastrophic things that could happen when it comes to AI. One of the things that, obviously being, running the accelerator, my focus is on startups. So we've always got to have some startup content in there. And one of the questions that I get all the time are like, why do some startups succeed with BrokerTech Ventures and why do some not?
Yeah.
And so I was like, well, what if we actually just had a session talking to our partners about, you know, why companies get through, why companies get in, why companies, why startups do really well and while others may not. And like, what are the things that happen as part of the process that influence that? And so I think that's going to be really, really insightful when it comes to from the startups perspective. There's one that I came up with the title, but it's pretty pervasive in startup world of unsexy startups. So the thought being like rise of the unsexy startup, and everybody wants to like tackle the cool stuff, right? The areas where it's bleeding edge technologies, but there are so many companies out there that are just doing stuff in really mundane, boring places within insurance that are just absolutely killing it because they're solving such a pain point. And so we're gonna highlight some of the startups that have gone through our program that are doing that, and hopefully it will give startups that are out there, or even like anywhere in the insurance supply chain, kind of an understanding that, hey, there are startups out there that are looking to tackle real problems. And so there's some really interesting content that I think will be available.
Since kicking off in 2020 amid the global pandemic, BrokerTech Connect has made great strides. Here are some of John's favorite moments from over the years.
Oh, favorite moment of the conference so far. That's an interesting one. So probably usually because I'm kind of the point person when it comes to BrokerTech Connect. And I'll have a couple different answers for this. So maybe favorite moments. So the first year we couldn't get the PowerPoints to display correctly on the screen, which you're thinking, right? Like, come on, it's a projector, and it took like 4 hours
Oh, good Lord.
of, I know, right? They had to replace equipment and all this stuff, and we finally got it working. And that was one of the biggest, like, exhales
Mm-hmm.
of the conference. And it's so mundane, and it's so almost slightly irrelevant, but it was like we finally got it working. And so that is a moment of pure joy that kind of like sticks out in my mind. I have met so many amazing startups that have gotten into our program at ITC. Blue Pond, Sentinel, Page Dips, and the first time I ever met them, and they stopped by, and so it's like you, it's such a the 2 days were of the expo, so the Wednesday and Thursday where we have our BTV lounge, and I spend the majority of time just sitting in a chair while startups just kind of like circle around. I won't say like vultures, but you get the idea.
Yeah.
Just waiting for one startup to stand up, and then musical chairs, and the other one sits down. So it's very depleting, because you're constantly talking, and having to think, but it's also really amazing when you can talk to a startup that's doing something really, really impactful in the industry, and make a connection and see them come through the process, and then get selected at the end, which is not an easy thing to do, but it's been the genesis of a lot of companies that have succeeded within BTV.
BTV's busy fall doesn't stop with ITC. John shares what's next on the agenda for his team.
Yeah, so October, definitely focused on ITC and BrokerTech Connect. November, we're going to be focusing on a couple other new events, at least for us. So the CIAB is putting on a working group, where operations and working group, and one of the sessions is this innovation session, where it's a little bit coming from the startup world, akin to in it, like a startup weekend, right? Where people kind of gleam onto a startup idea and then work on that. And within this session, we're actually, it's a little bit different. It's going to be a topic, right? And these working groups are going to work on a specific topic that's been vetted and voted upon. And what's really cool is, so BTV gets to help and assist in that process, from the topics that get created all the way to the implementation. And one of the things that we're going to be doing is bringing some of our startups,
Oh,
to
wow.
actually help work within that session. And it's because, obviously, to be a founder, and it's the founders of these startups that are going to be in attendance, and it's going to be cool because, as a founder, you really have to just think differently. And you have to think that, hey, for a startup to be successful, they basically have to say, the way it's being done right now is bad or inefficient, or something where they can change and insert themselves. Otherwise, there would be no value in the product or service that they provide. And so we're going to have, call it 10 to 12 startups that are going to be working within these different pods of teams to help them think about these ideas. Yeah, and then back to back. So then the next week, we're going to be hosting, in Des Moines, Iowa, the Rapid InsureTech Accelerator. So last year, this was done in conjunction with an event in Israel, around kind of global insurance and InsureTech. This year, Kobe is going to be bringing that to Des Moines. And along with BrokerTech Ventures, we'll have Manchester Story, the Global Insurance Accelerator, and just picked up the University of Iowa
Wow.
to help with the coordination of everything, to really help drive this Rapid InsureTech Accelerator. So think, there's all of these InsureTech industry organizations around the world, and each part of the world gets to essentially nominate a startup to participate. So they will, at that second full week of November, they'll all descend on Des Moines, where we're going to start building out a 4-day agenda, from everything from mentors in all different sorts of areas within the InsurTech space, to could be government officials, could be industry organizations, could be a lot of different content, but in a way to drive acceleration in these startups. And being in the United States will obviously have a bit of a US bend on it. But the reality is that a lot of startups, especially in InsureTech, the United States becomes a target market at some point, even if it's not initially there. And so we're really excited. Obviously, the fall is going to be a very busy time for us, but we're excited to see what we can do and see how BrokerTech Ventures can continue to grow and help the industry.
That was John Jackovin, Executive Director of the BrokerTech Ventures Accelerator. I hope you enjoyed our conversation. For more with BTV, visit leadersedge.com.